Imagine a nearly tangible darkness, pierced only by a fragile light, like a moonbeam falling on an ancient temple hidden atop a mountain. A secretive wind whistles through centuries-old trees, its echo seeming to call out forgotten names from the mists of time. In the distance, a solemn and sacred choir begins its chant, carrying a refrain that, as if in a dream, unveils the grandeur and mystery of a lost pantheon. Drums resound like the heartbeat of titans, while fragrant smoke laden with resins and sacred herbs rises toward the star-filled sky. This is the moment when we gaze upon another realm, a bridge between the mortal world and the world of the gods. With each step, we move ever deeper into a universe of secret rites, unwavering faith, and heroic tales. It is the instant when, at last, a world few have beheld and even fewer dare to speak of is revealed. Thus begins our story about the Dacian Pantheon, a constellation of ancient deities born in the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, shaped by the breath of storms and by the gold dust hidden deep within the earth. I invite you to let inspiration carry you, to imagine how, at the dawn of civilization, people looked up at the skies and wondered who guided their destinies and how to gain the favor of these mighty forces, so close yet unfathomable. Together, we will discover a history abundant in divine signs, mysterious oracles, and sacred traditions. We will relive the birth of myths and listen to the murmur of the past, guided by a voice that fuses reverence for the gods with a fascination for the unknown. In this cinematic documentary, we will embark on an epic journey through the swirling beliefs of the ancient Dacians, a brave and devoted people who forged their destiny on the frontier between the known world and the lands yet untrodden. We begin in the murky distance of their earliest rites, when Dacian tribes would gather on high plateaus, where sky and earth unite in a whirling dance of legends. Then we delve into the innermost sanctuaries, listening to whispered prayers by firelight and feeling the emotion of those who firmly believed in the protection and influence of these deities. Against the backdrop of these images, we perceive the power of mountains that rise toward the stars, like eternal colossi, symbols of elevation and of the bond between the earthly and the divine. We hear how the roar of waters rushing through gorges and canyons creates a natural symphony, long considered a secret language through which Dacians communed with their gods, and in the flash of lightning across a stormy sky, we discern the presence of the Pantheon's great powers, who governed weather, life, and death. Thus, within these scenes imbued with majesty, a chapter of humanity's sacred history is unveiled, the pantheon of a people who, though disappearing centuries ago, left their legacy in the cultural roots of the world. Through this documentary, you are invited to contemplate not only the past of a nation, but also the role faith, in its many forms, plays in shaping identity and the human spirit. Historically, the Dacians occupied the territory roughly bounded by the Carpathians, the Danube, and the Black Sea. This region, rich in wild beauty and remarkable natural diversity, served as the ideal backdrop for the genesis of a pantheon centered primarily on the forces of nature and cosmic phenomena. Archaeological evidence, writings by ancient authors such as Herodotus or Strabo, and traditions handed down over generations offer clues about how deeply religious life was embedded among the Dacians. The birth of gods, in the consciousness of this people, was closely bound to the dynamic environment that surrounded them. The violent mountain storms, harsh winter frosts, mighty floods, and abundant summer harvests were interpreted as manifestations of entities beyond human power. From here arose the earliest myths about deities of the sky, lightning, fertile earth, or healing. Every natural phenomenon was traced back to a god or goddess, maintaining the balance between humanity and nature. The origins of worship for these gods can be placed as far back as the Iron Age, but the pantheon crystallized in the classical age of the Dacians, when tribes began to unite under powerful leaders like Burebista or Decebalus. This was the era in which ancient writers mention a priest-king and temples built on sacred heights. By then, the gods had been organized into a hierarchy in which one or two supreme deities held the role of preserving cosmic order, while lesser entities ruled over more specific aspects of earthly life and the natural world. Dacian civilization consisted of a network of tribes, each possessing its own customs, but united by a common language and a religious conception that revered the same gods, though with certain local variations. As the political power of Dacian kings grew, the cult of the gods spread and became more uniform. Zalmoxis, for instance, gained increasing presence in the collective mindset, regarded as a wise deity close to humankind who promised the immortality of the soul. In every settlement, from humble huts to imposing strongholds like Sarmizegetusa Regia, the deities had altars and dedicated spaces. A temple did not necessarily have to be opulent, but could be recognized by sacred symbols, sculpted pillars, hearths, or stone circles where rituals of purification and sacrifice were performed. Priests, whether few in small communities, played a crucial role as mediators between the divine and mortal worlds. Typically, people showed their devotion through humble offerings, grain, wine, milk, or small animals, to thank the gods for granting them health, prosperity, and defense against enemies. Major festivals were marked by collective rites, where an entire village or fortress came together to dance, sing, and celebrate the sacred forces. Under the vigilant eye of priests, these rites fortified the feeling of belonging to a cosmic whole in which humans and gods supported each other. At the heart of this sacred universe stood Zalmoxis, the most renowned figure in the Dacian Pantheon. Often depicted as a god-man who had once lived among mortals, Zalmoxis personified rebirth and immortality. Some ancient sources describe him as a wise mortal who, after death, rose to the status of a deity, gaining the power to offer eternal life to those who worshipped him with unswerving faith. In this hybrid role, Zalmoxis served as a bridge between humanity and the heavens, demonstrating that anyone could aspire to immortality through purity and dedication. Beside him, the pantheon included several other deities of great importance. Gebeleizis, known as the god of storms and thunder, presided over dark skies and the wrath of lightning, summoning it to strike in critical moments. Sometimes depicted as a heavenly archer, he was feared and venerated alike, for his might could devastate entire crops or purify the land. Dacians would often shoot arrows into the sky during storms, either to appease him or to prove their own courage. Bendis was the goddess of the moon and the nocturnal realm, protector of forests and fertile lands, Rituals in her honor were often held at night, under the glow of the moon, with priestesses dressed in white performing dances to celebrate the feminine forces of creation. Wrapped in mystery, Bendis was also connected to fertility and the regenerative power of nature, her role vital for maintaining the planet's balance as she marked the cycles of life, death, and renewal. The Dacian Pantheon did not halt at this principal triad. Another essential deity was Dacians, associated with healing, watchfulness, and the life force of humankind. It was believed that his temple housed sacred springs with healing powers, attracting pilgrims from far-off regions in search of remedies for their physical and spiritual ailments. Legends say Dacians would appear in the dreams of the gravely ill to show them which herbs and cures held miraculous potential. Likewise, this hierarchy included lesser-known divinities, some peculiar to specific tribes or regions, gods of swift rivers, of craggy peaks, or of howling winds, each held a well-defined position in the cosmic balance. Through their functions, the religious structure of the Dacians mirrored a complex world in which every deity possessed a clear domain and unique powers, invoked when necessity demanded. At the lower end of the hierarchy were nature spirits, animistic forces viewed as messengers or servants of the principal gods. These entities, such as a forest spirit or a river spirit, could be appeased with minor offerings, flowers, grains, milk, or, in significant circumstances, symbolic sacrifices. Thus, the Dacians maintained a close and respectful bond with the land they inhabited, conscious that every corner of nature might be the home of a supernatural being or an envoy of a higher divinity. The Dacians' strong faith in their pantheon shaped not only their spiritual life, but also their structures of governance. Leaders, be they kings or tribal chiefs, enjoyed heightened esteem if viewed as favored by the gods. Sometimes a sovereign was believed to be chosen by Zalmoxis or blessed by Gebeleizis, which bestowed upon him divine authority and legitimacy in the eyes of his people. In councils of war or discussions on social order, the invocation of gods was often the decisive argument, persuading subjects of the need for certain actions. Their unwritten laws, passed on orally, were rooted in the concept of sacred justice, equilibrium, and honor, all imbued with religious significance. For example, the punishment of thievery or betrayal was considered not only a way to uphold communal decency, but also to redress an offense against the sacred order established by the gods. The law of Zalmoxis, as it was sometimes called in tales, prescribed justice, bravery, and unity with one's tribe, for any act against this order risked incurring divine wrath. Meanwhile, priests and prophets played a central role in preserving social order. They interpreted celestial signs or collective dreams, offering guidance to rulers. In times of crisis, whether famine, war, or epidemics, priests would withdraw to mountaintops or isolated temples for fasting and prayer, seeking a divine message. Their return with visions and prophecies was welcomed with solemn respect, and the people followed their instructions faithfully, hoping to regain divine favor and cosmic harmony. Dacian art, including finely wrought gold ornaments, ceramic vessels bearing religious motifs, or stone and wood sculptures, consistently reflected veneration of the gods. Scenes carved into precious metals sometimes depicted deities battling malevolent forces or seated on thrones, encircled by symbols of prosperity, wheat, domestic animals, or flowering trees. In unearthed temples, archaeologists have found fragments of frescoes and bas-reliefs suggesting ritual moments, religious processions, and even depictions of sacred dances in tribute to Bendis. Dacian sacred architecture, particularly in mountainous regions, was austere in style, yet imbued with symbolism. Stone circles and rectangles, often aligned with the path of the sun or moon, served not only as places of worship, but also as rudimentary astronomical devices used to mark equinoxes and solstices. Thus, religion was interwoven with early attempts at scientific observation. The moral code advocated by the Dacian Pantheon centered on courage, dignity, and a reverence for life's cyclical nature. Because Zalmoxis promised the soul's immortality, people learned to live unafraid of death, showing bravery on the battlefield. Respect and gratitude toward nature stemmed from the conviction that every aspect of the natural world was animated by sacred entities, that rivers, forests, and mountains were all worthy of veneration. According to certain ancient oral traditions, at first there was only darkness and endless waters. Out of this primeval chaos emerged a celestial flame, which gave birth to the first god, a demiurge not clearly named in the oldest accounts but later associated with Zalmoxis. He separated the waters from the earth, raised mountains, and cut deep valleys, thus shaping the physical world. Then he exhaled his breath across valleys and plains, bringing forth plants, animals, and finally humans. According to these myths, the first humans on Earth were initially naive and disunited, unaware of how to cultivate the land or hunt in an organized way. Zalmoxis descended among them to teach the art of farming, animal husbandry, and reverence for the cyclical nature of the seasons. It is further said that he revealed the secrets of the sacred fire during this time, a symbol of transformation and the link between gods and mortals. In many areas, this creation myth was interwoven with other local lore about Gebeleizis, who split the clouds with lightning, bringing the rains essential for crops. These regional variants did not contradict the core myth, but rather completed it, emphasizing the cooperation among the main gods in creating and sustaining life on Earth. A special section of Dacian mythology revolves around the bonds between gods and heroes. Stories exist of semi-divine champions, mortals chosen by a particular deity for a sacred mission. Such heroes, whether warriors or healers, enjoyed the protection and blessing of the supporting god, yet also provoked the envy and hostility of rival deities. These cosmic struggles were seen by mortals as explanations for times of famine, war, or natural disasters. A famous legend tells of a mighty warrior named Dacians, who received enchanted weapons from Gebeleizis to defeat a monstrous being lurking in caves beneath a sacred river. In gratitude, Dacians erected a stone altar atop the highest mountain, offering his most treasured possessions in sacrifice. It is said that upon his death, Dacians was granted a place in Gebeleizis' divine retinue, becoming a guardian at the threshold between the mortal realm and the world of the gods. Such myths provided behavioral models, courage, loyalty, piety. At the same time, they illustrated how deities wielded their authority over humans. In folk belief, being chosen by a god was an extraordinary honor, yet came with severe ordeals and responsibilities. As in many ancient mythologies, cosmic battles hold a central position in Dacian sacred narratives. One tale describes how, in ages long forgotten, dark forces, be they rebellious gods or demons of chaos, tried to seize dominion over the world. Unending storms raged across the land, sacred fires threatened to die out, and mankind lived in fear. In those dire hours, Zalmoxis allegedly summoned the entire Pantheon to stand against the onslaught. Gebeleizis unleashed blinding bolts of lightning. Bendis called upon nocturnal and natural spirits to rise against the monsters, while Dacians healed the wounds of divine warriors. The deciding showdown, a veritable Armageddon of its era, was said to have taken place on a sacred mountain, identified by some historians and legends as Kogaionon, the holy summit of the Dacians. Legend has it that the gods' victory cemented cosmic order and ensured the continuation of life on Earth, heralding a new era of harmony between mortals and divinity. This tale was recounted at annual festivals, accompanied by dances, music, and epic verse, reinvigorating the pact between humanity and the gods, and mentally preparing believers for any approaching trials. Orbiting the Dacian gods was an entire bestiary of wondrous beings that carried divine messages or tested the courage of mortals. Among these, legends recount the Carpathian Maestra, a bird with gleaming feathers and a healing song, said to manifest only before monumental challenges. Anyone who heard its song would be endowed with unbreakable resolve in the face of adversity. Deep within the mountain's caverns dwelled, according to stories, the fire serpent, an ancient spirit of earth and flame tied to underground riches. It was said that whoever sought to mine gold without offering tribute to this serpent risked provoking divine wrath, potentially vanishing into a sudden chasm. Such tales reinforce the unspoken rule that nature and the gods will be treated with respect. One also hears of the white wolf, thought to be a messenger of Zalmoxis. Encountering this wolf in a dream was interpreted as a divine sign that the god had turned his eyes toward that person, calling for a pivotal decision or transformation. Depicted in folk art and on the Dacian battle standard, the Draco with a wolf's head, the white wolf symbolized the profound bond between humans, nature, and divinity, and the capacity to rise anew in spite of any obstacles. Rituals played a crucial part in preserving the god's favor. In Dacian villages, each season was commemorated with elaborate ceremonies. Springtime, when nature came alive again, witnessed festivities dedicated to Bendis, aiming to bless crops and enhance the fertility of the land. Nighttime dances bathed in the light of the full moon, performed by young women dressed in white, symbolized communion with nature's forces. Summer was devoted to Gebeleizis, seeking to temper storms and bring beneficial rain. Known for their fearless fighting spirit, the Dacians demonstrated their bravery by shooting arrows into the sky as priests invoked the deities' protection over the harvest. Sometimes, if drought threatened to ruin the fields, more extensive rites, featuring animal sacrifices and mantras chanted during lightning storms, were performed to ensure the rains returned. Autumn brought offerings of gratitude for all the Pantheon's deities, with gifts from that season's abundant produce. These festivals were vibrant displays of color, music, and aroma, showcasing the apex of Dacian culture: music, dance, wood carvings of deities, and brightly hued garments signifying renewal and plenty. During winter, when cold and darkness reigned, rituals took a more austere turn, beseeching the divine flame and warmth for endurance in the harsh months. Sacrifice, in its various forms, lay at the core of Dacian ritual. Offerings commonly consisted of farm animals, mainly sheep or goats, as well as agricultural produce and works of art. Their purpose was to demonstrate humanity's gratitude to the gods and reaffirm the sacred pact between the two worlds. Far from being seen as mere violence, sacrifice was viewed as a solemn moment in which mortals proved their reverence and commitment. A priest assigned to conduct the ceremony would wear robes of white or red, symbolizing purity and the sacred flame. With a ceremonial mask or headdress, he served as the bridge between mortals and the divine, pronouncing arcane words and chanting ancient hymns. During the ceremony, participants fell into a collective trance, accompanied by drums and flutes, and some claimed to sense the deity's presence. Initiatory rituals also occurred, especially for youth about to become warriors, or for those aspiring to the religious life. During these rites, the congregation's spiritual leaders passed on secret knowledge about the gods, nature, and the power of the soul. Held in an atmosphere heavy with mystery, novices learned protective spells, symbolic signs and gestures, alongside virtues like courage, honor, and self-sacrifice. Belief in the gods and their capabilities became a catalyst for the evolution of knowledge within Dacian society. Priests and healers, in their pursuit of divine favor, studied medicinal herbs, mineral properties, and the effects of various thermal waters to refine healing rituals. Thus, concern for health and the relief of suffering advanced alongside a heightened spiritual connection. Though there was no formal science in the modern sense, these treatment methods were rooted in empirical observation and repeated experimentation over many generations. Herbs such as St. John's wort, marjoram, sage, and mint were employed against diverse ailments in a fusion of practical remedies and religious belief. Often, natural medicine was accompanied by prayers to Gebeleizis, with successful cures being interpreted as a sign of the god's blessing. Likewise, an elementary astronomy took shape out of the need to align religious celebrations with the lunar phases or the sun's progress, determining the right times for certain rites. The alignment of temples and stone circles atop plateaus attests to these early attempts to measure time and interpret cosmic rhythms. In this manner, an understanding of nature and spiritual practice evolved hand in hand, enriching each other and driving a marked cultural leap forward. Dacian sacred architecture, most notably at Zalmoxis Regia and in other mountain fortresses, was replete with significant symbols. It is believed that circular sanctuaries represented the heavens, whereas rectangular platforms signified the earth, merging the two in mutual harmony. Carefully constructed, these temples were aligned to capture the sun's rays during solstices and equinoxes, elevating those astronomical events to moments of public celebration. Towering wooden pillars, sometimes carved with zoomorphic designs, wolves' heads, serpents, or eagles, demarcated the sacred space where religious gatherings took place. Representing cosmic axes, they spanned heaven and earth, reminding worshippers of the god's reign over both realms. In addition, cultic objects made of gold and silver, adorned with sacred motifs, bear witness to the extraordinary skill of Dacian artisans and their devotion to the divine. Mural art and bas-reliefs, though less common than in certain other ancient civilizations, add to the overall picture. Fragments unearthed in temple ruins show scenes of offerings, processions, and prominent figures worshipping deities. Though the techniques of the time may have been modest, the work's expressiveness and symbolic weight are evident in the angle of the figures' gazes, the stance of their bodies, and the cherished ritual items they hold. Within the Pantheon and its related cults, priests and prophets were highly revered. They often hailed from families with a history of serving the gods, and their preparation required years of apprenticeship in temples, typically located in remote areas. They learned to read natural signs, interpret dreams, and manage the calendar of rituals. They acquired knowledge of medicinal herbs and studied the god's will in the flight of birds or in the glow of the sacred flame. Oracles, while less numerous than in other ancient cultures, had their own niche. In caves deemed sacred, women who were initiated, termed priestesses of the light or daughters of Bendis, would enter a trance and utter prophecies. These revelations generally followed the consumption of ritual beverages, an infusion of herbs and wine that fostered an extended form of communication. Communities or tribal leaders consulted these oracles for insight on warfare, planting strategies, strategic marriages, or other critical decisions. What set the Dacian faith apart from many polytheistic religions was the emphasis on an individual's direct bond with Zalmoxis. Although priests served as mediators, everyone was thought capable of praying and receiving signs from the deity, provided one's heart was pure and one's faith resolute. This nearness to the sacred gave the Dacians a reputation for deep spirituality and for fearlessness in the face of death, firmly convinced that their souls did not vanish but ascended to a higher plane in the presence of the supreme god. Dacian society came alive during religious festivities, when the entire populace would congregate in fortresses or upon the sacred highlands. Temporary altars were erected, sumptuous meals were prepared, and ancient narratives were recited with dramatic fervor. Rituals, music, and dancing served to honor the divine powers and renew the bond with nature. Daily life was also defined by rules and taboos stemming from religious practice, in certain periods considered impure, such as after a death or at the conclusion of the harvest. Travel to the holy mountain or eating certain foods deemed inappropriate for that interval might be restricted. Cleansing rituals in springs, famed for their exceptional energy, were likewise performed to expel negative influences from one's body and spirit. Major festivals, such as those dedicated to Zalmoxis, spanned days of rites and communal feasting. They included demonstrations of courage and ritual combat, reinforcing the idea that bravery was a central virtue. Craftsmen and artists displayed their creations, and merchants from neighboring tribes came to exchange goods, taking advantage of a stretch of peace and communal excitement. In this way, faith directly impacted the unity of the community and their collective prosperity. Like numerous ancient faiths, the Dacian religion reached its apex before gradually being undermined by political, military, and cultural upheavals. One of the major turning points was conflict with the Roman Empire, which extended its borders and authority over Dacian lands. As a result of the Dacian Wars and Emperor Trajan's conquest, the territory of Dacia became a Roman province, and the old temples were slowly deserted or repurposed. The new Roman rulers introduced their own pantheon: Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the imperial cult, which deified the emperors. Though some Dacians held to their native traditions, religious syncretism became inevitable. Zalmoxis was assimilated into a sort of mystery cult, at times compared to Liber Pater or Serapis, while Bendis came to be worshipped by neighboring peoples under a guise resembling Artemis or Diana. Thus, the Dacian religion gradually dissolved into a mix of local customs and Roman beliefs, losing its distinct identity and consistency. The grand mountain shrines that once attracted entire tribes began to lie in disrepair, or be visited only sporadically by small pockets of people still attached to their ancestral heritage. Over subsequent decades and centuries, most of the population took on new beliefs introduced from south of the Danube and throughout the Roman Empire. Beyond the formidable impact of Roman conquest, certain historians suggest that natural forces, like seismic events or climatic shifts, also eroded trust in the old gods. If a long drought struck the region and the ceremonies dedicated to Gebeleizis failed to bring rain, people might have interpreted this as diminished divine power. Similarly, catastrophic events such as widespread flooding or forest fires were interpreted either as manifestations of divine anger or as evidence that the Dacians had strayed from the gods' commandments. In response, many may have turned to other deities or adopted foreign faiths, hoping these new gods would grant them needed protection. Amid the disintegration of free Dacia's political structure, new and better organized religions, backed by political support, naturally gained ground. Besides purely spiritual considerations, changes in trade routes and cultural exchanges sped the disappearance of ancient rites. While accounts of Zalmoxis, Bendis, or Gebeleizis did not vanish immediately, they began to be recast in folk narratives, shifting their status from universally sacred truths to legends told among the people. Although the Dacian faith ceased to exist as an organized religious system, many of its practices and symbols survived in altered forms through syncretism and folklore. Rural customs that employ water rituals for purification, dances around fire, or the invocation of the white wolf on the eve of Sanziene may echo ancient worship. Even the soul's immortality, intimately linked to Zalmoxis, lingers in Romanian collective consciousness through various beliefs and superstitions. Bendis, as a goddess of the woods and fertility, can be found in certain mythic female figures from springtime legends or nature-based festivals. The nocturnal dances under the moon, still performed in certain mountain regions, might be reinterpretations of her ancient rites. Likewise, the symbol of the wolf and the cult of the heroic avenger remain present in folk tales and some winter caroling traditions that pay homage to ancestors and the sacred link to the land. In the modern era, the fascination with Dacian roots has been reignited by archaeological findings, popular writings, and television documentaries. The allure of a people perceived as proud, nearly legendary, has also contributed to the emergence of romanticized or pseudo-historical theories. Many attempt to reconstruct ancient ceremonies, revive altars, and reenact rites in search of a spiritual identity that may seem lost in today's hectic world. Consequently, although the Dacian Pantheon is no longer worshipped as before, its echoes still rise from time to time in the collective psyche. Today, when we tread the paths once taken by the people of Sarmizegetusa Regia or explore the Dacian sanctuaries in the mountains, we are overcome by a profound feeling that we are crossing into a sacred realm permeated by ancestral energies. The ruins of these structures and the surviving stories from ancient chronicles remind us of the powerful symbolism of the deities who once inspired the Dacians to build fortresses and fight valiantly for their homeland. Though time has drawn a curtain over their pantheon and elaborate rituals, fascination with Zalmoxis, Gebeleizis, Bendis, and the others endures. There are countless books, films, and video games that take elements of fantasy from the mythology of these towering mountains, while debates on the Thracian Dacian legacy sometimes intersect with conspiracy theories or New Age interpretations. For some, this past represents the core of a national identity. For others, a compelling subject of scholarship, and for still others, a mere legend from another chapter of human history. Nevertheless, one truth remains. The sacred and symbolic power of these ancient gods has not entirely faded away. There are still those who climb the Carpathian peaks, press their palms against the cold stones of deserted sanctuaries, and whisper hidden prayers. Whether driven by curiosity or an inner calling, this act of devotion briefly reignites the resonance of a time when, for the Dacians, earth and sky were one and the same sacred reality. As the cloak of night settles over the Carpathian ridges and the wind takes up its ancient song again, you sense that the story of the Dacian Pantheon is far from ended. It lives on within us, in our curiosity about the past, in the enchantment we experience when venturing onto unknown trails, and in our longing to connect with something greater than ourselves. Every rock, every stream, and every whisper of wind might contain a divine message, provided we keep our hearts open to listen. You are invited to journey further, to seek signs, to ask questions, and to rekindle that fragment of mythology that lies dormant in each of us. Perhaps on your path, you will encounter the white wolf, or feel a bolt of Gebeleizis lightning guiding your steps. Perhaps on a summer night, under a moonlit sky, you will hear the maestra's song and momentarily grasp what it feels like to be part of an ancient cosmogony. And then, looking up at the starlit firmament, you might wonder, how far are we really from those days when the gods walked among mortals? Or might they still be watching, waiting to be rediscovered within ourselves in the actions and beliefs that steer our lives? We leave this question lingering in the air, inviting each of you to find your own answer in a world where the sacred echoes of the past continue to cloak the present in mystery and hope. Thus ends our tale of the Dacian Pantheon, yet not the journey that beckons us to ponder the might of ancient faiths and the ways they have shaped our destiny. The history and myths of the Dacians remain a rare and treasured chapter, a testament to the majesty that human imagination and devotion can attain. And perhaps, by listening to the echo of drums and the priest's calls, our hearts may open to the ultimate questions of nature, divinity, and our purpose in this world. In the twilight of history, these answers may guide us towards spiritual rebirth, just as they once did for a people who turned mountains into temples and nurtured hope into immortality.